Welcome to Echoes from the Beyond. Before we begin, if you like this content, please like, share, and subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications, as this lets me know that you like this content and would like to hear more of it. Now, let's begin. The Smiling Man. It was late, well past midnight. When I finally decided to head home, the streets were empty. The kind of emptiness that made every sound feel louder. Every shadow seemed so much darker. I wasn't afraid, just tired, ready to get home, to get some sleep, but something felt off. The streetlights hummed, flickering slightly as it struggled to stay awake. The distant sound of a lone car engine faded into silence. The air felt unusually still, like the world itself was holding its breath. And then I saw him. A man standing on the opposite side of the street. At first, nothing seemed unusual until I saw his face. He was dressed like any ordinary man. Dark slacks, a button-up shirt, slightly disheveled, but his posture, it was wrong. Too stiff, too calculated. And then there was the smile. It wasn't a polite, passing smile. It wasn't even a grin of amusement. It was wide. Stretched too wide, like his lips had been carved into a permanent expression of joy that wasn't truly joy at all. His eyes locked onto mine, unblinking. He wasn't just standing. He was watching, waiting. I swallowed, telling myself it was nothing. Just some guy staying outside late at night. Maybe he was drunk. Maybe he was lost. But I didn't truly believe it. It was just something I wanted to tell myself to feel better. There was something about his posture. Something about the way he stood there, unmoving, that set off every instinct in my body. People waiting for someone glance around. They check their phones. They shift their weight, even slightly. But not him. He was still as stone, still smiling. A slow chill crawled up my spine. I forced myself to look away, to keep walking, just keep walking. If I just ignored him, maybe he'd go away. Wouldn't he? I mean, why not? So I kept walking, shaking off the uneasy feeling crawling up my spine. People stand around all the time, right? Maybe he was waiting for someone. But then he moved. Not towards me, not away, just shifting. One foot dragging in front of the other. The way he walked, it was deliberate, exaggerated, like he was mimicking movement rather than doing it. His arms swayed too much. His shoulders rose too high with each step, and yet that smile never faded. He wasn't just following the sidewalk. He was following me. My pulse quickened. I wasn't the type to scare easily, but something about this man, something about his presence, it felt wrong. I sped up, and so did he, but it wasn't a normal run. It wasn't even a jog. His movements didn't change. He just got faster. I couldn't believe my eyes, like a marionette being pulled by invisible strings. The space between us was closing. I turned a corner. So did he. I ran. So did he. His footsteps were silent. That was the worst part. There was no sound, no breath, no heavy footfalls on the pavement. Just his shadow stretching longer, getting closer. I could feel it. He wasn't running. He was gliding. I didn't dare look back. The air felt thicker, heavier, like the night itself was pressing down on me. And then, just as suddenly as he appeared, he stopped. Not gradually. 1 second he was moving. The next he was completely still. I made the mistake of looking. Why did I do that? And sure enough, he was still smiling, still standing, as if nothing had happened, as if the chase had been an illusion, a game only I had played in my mind. He slowly raised his arm, not to wave, not to signal, just raising it, holding it there, pointing at me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to scream so bad. There were so many thoughts rushing through my mind. I thought I was going crazy. Was this happening, or was it just something that I conjured up inside of my head? I can't tell what's real and what's not. And no one was around to hear me. I ran until my legs burned, until my lungs felt like they collapsed. I burst through the door of my apartment, and it locked behind me, my hands shaking. I pressed my forehead against the wood, trying to calm myself, trying to breathe. And then I made the mistake of looking out the peephole. Again, he was there, standing across the street, still smiling, still waiting. He didn't move. Not that night. Not the next night. But every time I left my apartment, I felt like I was being watched. Like he was waiting. And then one morning, he was gone. Just gone. No trace, no sign that he had ever even been there. But the feeling never left. The smiling man isn't just a story. People have reported seeing him in different locations, in different cities, but always the same unnatural grin. What is he? Is he a man? Or perhaps a spirit? Maybe something else entirely that we cannot comprehend. No one knows. But if you ever see someone standing in the dark, smiling just a little too wide, don't stop walking. Don't look back. And whatever you do, don't run. Because if you run, he'll follow. The shadow people phenomenon. Today we'll be discussing the supernatural horror known as the shadow people, as well as sleep paralysis, along with real encounters, and what is known to be as the Hat Man legend. Now, let's begin. You wake up in the middle of the night. The room is silent, but something feels wrong. You try to move, but you can't. Your body is frozen, your breath shallow. Then, in the corner of the room, it appears a shadow, darker than the darkness itself. It doesn't have a face, it doesn't have eyes, but you know it's looking right at you, watching. And then it moves. What are shadow people? As far as we know, they are the oldest of unknown entities. Shadow people are one of the oldest paranormal phenomena ever recorded. They are not ghosts. They are also not hallucinations. They are something else. People describe them as human-shaped shadows, often appearing in bedrooms, hallways, and doorways, and sometimes even appearing as common items that you may find in your home, such as a jacket on the couch, a chair in the corner, maybe even a robe hanging on your doorway. But the shadow people don't speak. They don't breathe. They only watch. And sometimes they get closer. The earliest records of shadow people go back centuries. Ancient Egypt described shadow-like figures that stole the souls of the living. Sumerian texts spoke of beings called the unnaturally, spirits that lurked in the darkness. Medieval Europe had records of the shadow men, figures that appeared at the foot of the bed before a person's death. Native American tribes have legends of the Dark Watchers, mysterious beings that stood on mountaintops, silently observing travelers. No matter where you look in history, shadow people have always been there. Some scientists argue that shadow people are just hallucinations caused by sleep paralysis. Sleep paralysis is a condition where your brain wakes up, but your body remains frozen. During this state, some people see dark figures in their room. But here's the problem. Not everyone who sees shadow people is asleep. There are cases of entire families seeing them at the same time. There are hundreds of reports of them being captured on security cameras. If they were just hallucinations, why are they seen by so many people around the world? There's so many stories, so many testimonies, so many claimed encounters and interactions with these so-called shadow people, and they sound very similar. No matter if you're awake or asleep, whether it be the waking world or in the spiritual realm. People have reported seeing shadow people all the time. Across the world, people have reported the same terrifying encounters. Take, for instance, a man in Texas described waking up to see a shadow figure standing in his closet. The next night, it was closer. The third night, it was beside his bed. A woman in Germany saw a shadow man standing in her hallway. When she turned on the light, it didn't disappear. It stood there. A family in Canada moved into a new home, only to have their toddler wake up screaming every night. Pointing at the corner, when asked what was wrong, the child only said, "The dark man." These aren't myths. These are real encounters. So the question is, are shadow people watching you too? Among all shadow people, one prominent figure stands out as the most feared of them all. They call him the Hat Man. He is taller than the others, sometimes described as 7 feet or more. He wears a long trench coat and a wide-brimmed hat. Unlike other shadow people, he has glowing red eyes, piercing through the darkness whenever you encounter him. People who see him report the same thing. He doesn't just watch. He doesn't just stand in the corner. He gets closer. And he doesn't leave. Those who see the Hat Man often experience horrific misfortune soon after. Some believe he is a warning. Others believe he is the cause. Some encounters with shadow people are not just about seeing them. Some people hear them. One chilling account comes from a man named Daniel, who lived alone in a small apartment. For weeks, he had been experiencing a feeling of being watched. At first, he dismissed it as paranoia. But then, he began waking up at exactly 3:33 a.m. every night. One night, he awoke to a suffocating weight on his chest. His body was frozen, his room completely silent, except for a faint whisper. The voice was not human. It was distorted, layered, like multiple voices speaking at once. "We see you." The next morning, Daniel found long scratch marks on his chest. His apartment had been locked from the inside. A woman reported seeing a shadow figure inside her bathroom mirror. It wasn't a reflection. It was standing behind her, but wasn't in the room itself. She turned around. Nothing was there. She turned back to the mirror. It was closer. Frozen in fear, she watched as the shadow figure tilted its head as if studying her. Then, slowly, it smiled. Hospice nurses, paramedics, and even families of the dying have reported seeing the Hat Man standing in doorways just before someone passes away. What is the Hat Man? A harbinger of death? A collector of souls? Or something even more sinister? Now we ask, can the shadow people follow you? Or is there some deep seated fear of bringing them home? Some people claim that after seeing a shadow figure, it begins appearing in different places: at home, at work, in their car, or even in public spaces. Can shadow people attach themselves to you? Can they move from place to place, watching, waiting? And if they can, how do you make them leave? Some theories that challenge everything, where they could be from, if not possibly another reality. Some scientists believe there are multiple realities existing at the same time, and that shadow people are simply beings that have slipped through the cracks, so to speak. Could they be watching us from their world, just as we unknowingly glimpse into theirs? And if they're from another plane of existence, do they see us as ghosts? In conclusion, if you ever wake up in the middle of the night and you see a shadow standing in your room, don't move, don't speak, and whatever you do, don't let it know you can see it.